Hi, everyone. I'm Jocelyn Green, and I am so honored that your book club chose to read or listen to A Refuge Assured. Thank you so much for all of your great questions. A lot of these, I'm looking at them on my Kindle. That's why I'm looking down. I have not been asked before, so this is going to be really interesting and thought provoking for me, too. Um, I don't want to take up too much of your time, so I'm going to try to answer these succinctly as much as possible. The first question should be easy. Can I introduce myself? I live in Cedar Falls, Iowa, with my husband and two children. They are in fourth and seventh grades. My daughter is the older one. My son is in fourth grade. We have two cats. We do like dogs too, but right now we have two cats. They keep me company in the late hours when I'm writing. Um, let's see, what else can I tell you? I grew up in Iowa. I went to college at Taylor University in Indiana. I met my husband when we were both working in Washington, D.C. He was a Coast Guard officer. I was working at a nonprofit on Capitol Hill. We married and moved to Homer, Alaska, which was his next duty station. And after he got out of the Coast Guard, we decided to move back to Iowa because my parents live nearby. My brother was a missionary to France. His wife is from Paris, or the suburb of Paris, and they were missionaries together with Crew, which is formerly Campus Crusade. And they moved back to Waterloo, where my brother is a pastor, and now I get to see them and my little nieces. You should hear them speak French. It is the most adorable thing. And I'm not being succinct. This is what you get when you ask a novelist to answer questions. Sorry about that. I will continue on. You're a group made of several church friends and few mom friends from kids' school. That's great. I love that you get together and read books and talk about them. Um, Next question. Aside from history, where do I get my inspiration? Well, history is the place I get most of my inspiration. Whether it's just clicking around online, doing research, following one rabbit trail to another, or if I go on a family vacation and we go to a museum and I'm just taking pictures of all the little placards and signs. Sometimes it's going touring in a really old house, like a mansion from the 1920s, and just getting some ideas from that, which is kind of historical anyway. So I don't know. A lot of times I get inspiration for characters just from real people and just understanding relationships and psychology and personality types, things like that. Now, the next couple of questions I'm going to combine. So, the question, did any aspect of this novel parallel a theme from your own life? How? And then the next question, there's a lot of danger in this book. What is a dangerous thing you have done or been through, and how did it affect your life? Well, obviously, I have not been through anything remotely close to the French Revolution. However, I mentioned that I did live in Washington, D.C., and I was there on Capitol Hill during the terrorist attacks of September 11th, 2001. So that was probably the most danger that I have been in. The Pentagon was hit, as you know, and I went to the Pentagon every morning on my way to work on Capitol Hill. I would take a bus to the Pentagon and then take the metro to Capitol Hill and then walk another mile to work. So I was there for that. That day, for some reason, that day I did not take public transportation to the Pentagon. Um, but I lived through that, and from the roof of our office building on Capitol Hill, we could see the fires from the Pentagon. I lived close. I lived in Northern Virginia at the time, and I remember watching the news that night, just being really in shock and not being able to handle the news anymore. It was just too horrible. And so I thought I would just shut off the TV and go outside and mow the lawn, which I did. But as I was mowing the lawn, I was pushing my mower through ashes. that were from the Pentagon, from the plane crashing into the Pentagon. Um, so I couldn't really get away from it. And if you've been close to a terrorist attack like that, it really does affect you. Um, so when I was writing A Refuge Assured, and I had Vivienne, or Vienne, her nickname, in America, but still thinking back to what happened during the French Revolution, um, one of my early readers questioned that. She was like, can she just get over it? Can she just, now she's in America, can she just forget about France? And I thought about that, but the truthful answer is no. You don't forget about things like that you go through. Um, how did it affect me to go through that? Well, I wrote an entire blog post about it that's a better answer. So if you're really interested, jocelyngreen.com, and then in the search post, just type Joy Comes in the Morning, I think is the name of my blog post. I could talk for a long time about that. But I will say, oh, also, it wasn't just the terrorist attack, but then the anthrax scare. I don't know if you remember about this, but there were concerns about biological warfare. And as I was driving across the bridge to get from Northern Virginia to work on Capitol Hill, we would hear on the radio that you should roll down your windows in case the bridge is blown up while you're on it. And that way, when you fall into the river, you will not be trapped in your car and you're able to get out. So these are the kinds of things that we had to get used to. And it really made me think about people in generations past who lived through war, especially on the home front even. Aside from the Civil War and the Revolutionary War, most of our wars have not been fought on American soil. And so I just thought, I was thinking how dramatic and strange this is. And this is just one or two terrorist attacks. What was it like for people who lived with this type of thing all the time? I'm going to move along because there are other questions to get to. But Joy Comes in the Morning, jocelyngreen.com, if you're very, very interested in how that affected me, because I'm a better writer than I am a speaker, and I chose my words very carefully for that post. So enjoy. Number 4, Vivienne has doubts about how she is raising Henri. Do you have kids? Yes, I do. How do you handle doubts about your sufficiency in raising kids, being a wife, writer, etc.? Well, I pray a lot. And I also just realized that I can't do everything well in the same day. So, I mean, of course, there's the big picture questions like, am I doing the right thing by my kids? Are we doing the right education choices? Am I letting them be on screens for too much time during the day? Yes, probably yes. Am I making a big enough effort for them to be with their friends? Like all these different questions. And talking to my husband, Rob, about them is really helpful, and talking to other parents. And I do a lot of that in person with my friends because social media can invite a lot of voices to comment who don't really know me and my family the way some trusted people do. Let's see. Yes, all right. So I think I answered that question. Number 5, after Sebastian Lemoyne is beaten by Liam, we don't see him again. Did he leave Asylum altogether? Yes, he did. So there was this little tiny scene where on his way out of Asylum, Paulette gives him a note to deliver for her, and it went to Corbin Fraser, the bad guy. So we assume that off screen he went home and he delivered the letter, and eventually he found out what happened with the whole unraveling of everything. And he did not have any idea that he was putting Henri in danger by his association with Paulette and Corbin Fraser. So I think he probably was feeling pretty bad about that. I don't know. I've kind of forgotten about Sebastian Lemoyne. It's been a really long time. But maybe one of you has a great idea of what happened to him. And you can make it up and tell me what you think. That would be totally fine. Number 6, Vivienne describes Tante Rose. Her name is Rose. So if you were listening to the audiobook and it sounds not like Rose, it's because the narrator said it with a French accent, and the Rose is really hard, the R, I mean, is really hard for us Americans to say. I'm not even going to attempt it, but her name is just Rose. Okay. Vivienne describes Tante Rose as the one person who really knew her and loved her. Who is that person in your life? That would be my husband at this point. Care to describe them? Well, him. He is, he's just the most supportive husband that I could hope for. He was in the Coast Guard, as I probably mentioned before, and he has always supported my desire to write. I write from home. I'm a stay-at-home mom, write from home mom. Those are the only things I do. I don't have a job outside of the home. And here's a little secret. We authors, we don't make a lot of money unless you're like Karen Kingsbury or Jerry Jenkins or some Max Lucado. I guess the list is kind of long, but most of us don't make all that much money, and I'm just really glad that he lets me do these things, and he puts up with all of my angst, whether it's writer angst or mom guilt or any of this. But we've been married for 15 years, and he's just the best. He's just the best. Number 7. Okay, I'll try to wrap this up here. Vivienne's understanding of her mother's motivations changed completely as the story goes on. That's true. What do you understand better about your mother now that you are older? Or what youthful impression has proved wrong now that you are an older and wiser adult? What a great question. I feel compelled to clarify that I have a really good relationship with both of my parents. They are, they live in the next town over, like 20 minutes away. So sometimes I have to tell them I've written some more really dysfunctional relationships between parents and children, but I didn't take my inspiration from you guys. The only thing that I can really think of about my mom is that when I was a kid growing up, I never understood why she liked watching dramas in the movie section. Why not a comedy or something light? And now I love dramas. I love to feel. I love to have compassion and just all the feels. I love drama. I love it. So I didn't understand that about her. I was just a kid. What did I know? Number 8, what advice do I have for aspiring writers? Again, on my website, jocelyngreen.com, I have a whole page devoted to this. It's a tab at the top called On Writing. But just very quickly, aspiring writers, I would say just a few things. Read voraciously. Read, if you want to write novels, read a lot of good fiction. If you're reading fiction and you think, well, I could write that, then read other fiction. Keep finding books until you see something that makes you say, oh, I wish I could write like that. Set the bar really high. Read books about the craft of writing fiction. Number 2, go to quality writers conferences. That's where you're going to be able to meet with other editors, and you'll be able to network and hone the craft of writing, hopefully. I can't remember where you guys are located. I don't know which state you're in. The wonders of the internet. But a few that I have enjoyed. Breathe Christian Writers Conference is in Grand Rapids, Michigan in October. It's very affordable and it's very good. I've heard that Mount Hermon is really, really good in California, but it's a little more expensive. Blue Ridge Mountain Writers Conference is another good one. Excuse me. I'm trying to think if I'm going to be coughing for a while now. Okay, I think I'm okay. Sorry about that. Can I tell you my story of getting published? Sure. I went to college to get a degree in writing, and then I wrote not very interesting things for, at least by my own standards. I worked at the university in the university relations department, so I just worked on newsletters, and then I got a job in Washington, D.C. as the editor and project manager for a nonprofit. And then after that, we moved to Alaska, and I was out of a job, so I decided to start freelance writing. So I did freelance writing for several years. And my first book, I have it, was inspired by my experience as a military wife. It took 3 years to get a book contract. This was with Moody Publishers, but it's called Faith Deployed: Daily Encouragement for Military Wives. That was my first book. And you pretty much, if you're not going to publish independently, and I do traditional publishing, you pretty much do need an agent. And I found my agent by going to a writers conference. It was actually the convention of the Evangelical Press Association, because I was a freelance journalist for several of their Christian magazines. So I got an agent, and he's the one who helped me find a publisher, although it took 3 years to find one. So it took a while. But during that time, I was reading, I was networking, I was writing so that I could just get better at the skill of writing. It takes a lot of work. What book do you have coming out next? Okay, it's called Between Two Shores, and I happen to have the cover here, but you can look it up on Goodreads. This is the heroine. Her name is Catherine. She's half French, half Mohawk. This will be my last novel for a while that has a French connection. And it's set during the 7 Years' War. She lives outside Montreal, and I hope you like it. I'm in the midst of editing the galleys right now, the paper copy. So if you want to read the book synopsis, you can go to goodreads.com and look up Between Two Shores. But I have taken up 17 minutes of your time, and I'm sorry because I know you guys have other things to do. I will not be offended if I find out ever that you have not finished this video, just FYI. But thank you so much for your time. Thanks for reading A Refuge Assured, and I hope you guys have a great night. Keep on reading.